I've been sitting on this video for a while because I haven't known how to talk about this, and one, that's probably that's problematic, and also if you're surprised that I'm making this video, then again that's even more problematic because it shows that I haven't created a space here that is at all inclusive. And for someone who says they talk about environmental justice, leaving racial justice out of the conversation is something that is just a massive, not just an oversight on myself, but it's also an act of complicity in what is happening around the world. I don't want to make this video white centering because right now what we should be doing is amplifying the voices of Black, Indigenous and people of colour who have been doing the work for years. White people should not be praised and they shouldn't be benefiting from anti-racism work. So before we get into this video, if you are going to watch it, I've put a list of resources in the description below that are far more important to look at and to listen to than my voice on this situation. And if you are going to watch the video, it's so important that you also make a commitment to support Black-owned businesses, to support authors and read the hundreds of books that they have tirelessly written about anti-racism work, to have those uncomfortable conversations offline with your white family and friends, and to simply do the work. It's not enough to engage in viral altruism and, scream that Black Lives Matter when another person has been killed because of the colour of their skin. I am so far from perfect and I probably made a ton of mistakes already. But being afraid of things like call-out culture is really, really damaging, and we need to put ourselves out there but to relieve some of the burden of talking about racial injustice. I am prepared to be called out. I am happy to be called out because this is how I have learned about anything, about the right words to say, about why silence really and truly is violence, and why it's not acceptable for someone who talks about environmentalism or even just someone with a platform not to talk about why Black Lives Matter and why allyship is so important, not just now, but every single day. As I said, I'm probably going to get things wrong, but our silence right now is deafening. It's really important for us to sit in our discomfort when we do something wrong. And I would rather say something and get it really wrong than continue to uphold oppressive systems that have benefited people like me for hundreds of years. I don't really know how to structure this video, but this really is for my white followers who don't really know how to approach this kind of topic, and who want to do something but have been kind of afraid to say something because you're not sure about saying the right words. I'm just going to talk about a few things that I've engaged in on social media, that I've read and kind of seen, and kind of tried to just look at some of the ways that we can help and build our knowledge on and offline to fight racial injustice. One of the things that has really come to light is how we really talk about the US as being problematic, and the US have overt racism, and that's something, that we don't have here in the UK. And we're so quick to say, thank God the UK isn't like this. Thank God Black men and women aren't being shot in the streets. But what we're doing is we're distancing ourselves from what we think is real racism. And I think we do this because we don't want to admit our complicity in upholding racial structures. I mean, the whole Windrush scandal in the UK is just a perfect example of how Black British citizens aren't considered in the same way that white citizens are. I mean, the UK government essentially saw them, even the children of the Windrush generation, as guests in our country, and that is it's really damning and it's really telling, and it's just important that we don't try to differentiate between the US and the UK. Just because racism looks different there doesn't mean it's not absolutely rife here as well. I think also this sort of distancing provides us with this outlet to remain silent on the issue because we don't think it's that bad here. We think kind of, oh, it's really bad in the US, so Americans should be the ones that kind of comment on this, and it's okay for us to remain silent. And especially because we get so uncomfortable and incredibly defensive when we do get called out. And I think the defensiveness is really what prevents us from speaking out on these issues. But the problem with that is it completely undermines the emotional labour of Black, Indigenous and people of colour who come into our inboxes or whatever and tell us when we've done something wrong. Like, I don't think we quite understand how triggering that possibly could be, and how much labour goes into, educating us and wanting to educate us. It's kind of like, we've created these systems of injustice, and then we're expecting Black people to completely undo them all on their own, and then we can be there to be like, oh yeah, because we're not racist, so like we're here, and like we've always been supporting you, and like, you can do all the work, and like when I do something, like I'm doing it really right. And that is just so problematic. It also negates the necessity for us to hold a mirror up to our own selves and to ask, like, am I racist? Am I racist? Because racism just isn't binary. Yes, it reveals itself in horrific ways like police brutality in the US, but it also reveals itself in the UK as well, in things like microaggressions, or something that might to us be seemingly simple as touching a woman of colour's hair. But if you don't understand how problematic that is, then you don't realise that racism can be subtle and overt. It's not this binary scale. Also, if you don't understand why touching a woman of colour's hair is problematic, there is a book linked in the description called Don't Touch My Hair, and I really recommend reading it. And though we will never understand what it's like to experience life as a Black, Indigenous or person of colour, it is imperative that we attempt at least to put ourselves in their shoes to understand their experience in any way possible. Because imagine what it's like to grow up and have absolutely no representation wherever you look of people who look like you. No CEOs, no teachers, no mainstream media, no news anchors, no models. This is incredibly traumatic, and it's more insidious than I think we realise. I was reading an article a couple of weeks ago about ballet shoes, and how only in the last maybe year or couple of years that ballet shoes have actually begun to make shoes for people who aren't white, because they're like skin coloured. And what that says is, it says that this is a white entertainment, or this is a white area, and that you're not welcome. By making shoes that are only for white people, we're essentially saying, yeah, you're not welcome here. I was also reading that it even goes deeper than that, like plasters. I think Tesco maybe recently came out, or last year came out with plasters that were more than just white skin coloured. That might not seem like a big thing to you, but that's how deep this racism runs. And it is in this country. This all says that you're not welcome and that we don't cater for you. Another example of representation being problematic is the way that brands have been responding to Black Lives Matter on social media, or Blackout Tuesday in particular. Aja Barber and Monroe Bergdorf have been calling out brands for their performative activism, and one really big and problematic brand, L'Oreal, they hired Monroe in 2017, and then they fired her because she was openly talked about anti-racism work and white supremacy. And now L'Oreal are coming out saying that, they stand for equality and that they're here for you, but they weren't there for Monroe Bergdorf in 2017 when they fired her. It's these two competing aspects that just shows you how deep that racism runs. Aja also called out H&M, and H&M pledged something like 500,000 American dollars or something to put towards the NAACP. But again, H&M don't pay their garment workers a fair wage. They also have only white board members. Unless they are willing to put that money into changing internal structures, and then on top of that donating money, this is nothing but performative activism. I really recommend going and watching Aja's stories and reading her latest posts on brands, but respect her rules and do not tag any brands in her comment section at all. It's really important when you're coming into a Black creator or person of colour's space that you listen and that you learn, and you do not add to the conversation unless, it's you've been there for a while, you've read their rules, and you actually respect their space. Where to go from here? Well, if you haven't been on social media and you haven't seen going around that, it's not enough to just not be racist. We have to be anti-racist. And this is not a belief, but a set of actions. This is the time to listen, to educate ourselves, to amplify Black voices, to donate, to protest, to deeply introspect and make it more than just one performative video or one performative share of resources on Instagram. This is the time to violently oppose the systems that oppress some and benefit others. This isn't the time to share resources that we don't even read ourselves, or to share places that we can donate that we don't even support. This is the time for radical action. And this is the time to be angry. And if you're not angry that lives are being lost because of the colour of their skin, then you really need to check yourself. This is the time to show that our activism is more than just performative nonsense. People are dying because of the colour of their skin. People are dying because they are trans and Black. They're being misgendered in the news. And I can only imagine how much more pain this is adding to them who will be triggered by this. If you think it is hard for us white people to sit here in this discomfort of learning anti-racism work, of learning of our own racial biases, imagine how much harder it is for those who have been fighting for their lives for decades, for years, for centuries. You have to think harder about the effect that it is having on their mental health. If you don't know who Michaela Loach is, she's got a great podcast called the Yikes Podcast, and I just listened to the last episode where she mentioned that when MLK died, his pathology report showed that his heart was 20 years older than he was. His heart was of a man 20 years older than he was. And that just shows you the stress, the physical and mental stress that goes into activism. It is long overdue, and it is time that we share this burden. What I need you to do next, and what I will be doing, is go to the description and see the resources. Do not amplify my voice. Do not thank me for this video. This is the bare minimum that I should be doing, and I have done it so imperfectly. But I am here, I am showing up, I am doing it wrong, I'm willing to be called out, and you need to be doing the same. Don't buy from Amazon if possible. There are loads of books in the description below. Try and get them from independent places. Or if you get Layla Saad's book on me and white supremacy. Hey guys, just so really quickly while I'm editing this video, Layla Saad actually just put up a post last night saying don't use the workbook that's free PDF, because in 2019 she actually took it down because she created a new iteration of the book in hardback, and those who are uploading it are doing so illegally because it is copyrighted. So please don't use the free PDF. If you find it, please report it, because it's an illegal copy. So if you do want it, then please follow the link in the description and buy it from the bookseller, or I think there might be one that you can pay for. As I said, this is literally the bare minimum that I should be doing, and this is a commitment from me to make this space more inclusive, to do the work myself on and offline, to commit to not just doing performative activism, but actually do the work. And I really hope that you guys do as well. Go to the resources, amplify their voices, not mine. That's it.